Hello again, and welcome to the fourth and last lesson in this course. This week we'll focus on communication options and managing the instructor-student, as well as the student-to-student, communication within the Blackboard environment. The welcome message is the first thing that students see, and it sets the tone for your online course. Many instructors also use the welcome message as a place for the students to introduce themselves to you and to each other. There are several components of a good welcome message, some of which you'll see on this screen. While there are many useful course tools in Blackboard, it's practical to keep them to a minimum the first time you teach an online course. Two you might consider are the announcements and the information sections. The former is dynamic, and you would add more announcements every time you have new reminders, links to really good discussions, or perhaps a weekly surprise, such as a special video or image. The information section is more static, and you'd probably best use it for information you only upload once, such as your syllabus, how to get the course textbook, notices about any on-ground tests if there are any, and perhaps unique information such as field trips, observations, observation times, or internships, etc. How do you set up and moderate discussions? For that matter, should you have discussions at all? In classes that are heavily information-based, for example, computer science programming class, there may not be very much to discuss other than the elegance of programming solutions. For a discussion to be worthwhile, the topic must be something on which our opinions vary. For you to feel engaged, the topic needs to be something you care deeply about. Well, hopefully you do care about whether and how to create and moderate discussions, because that is one of our topics this week. There are a few good sources of hints and tips in this week's content folder. Right now, let me just point out 3 of these. Discussions work very well for groups of students, especially when they're working on a project. Secondly, many professors create a non-moderated, but observed, separate discussion for topics unrelated to the course content, and this is often called a coffee lounge. And thirdly, one of your big roles in moderating discussions is to be the arbiter of netiquette, or the etiquette of online discussions. They can get out of hand, so frequent observations of what gets posted is a necessity. As we said, different classes have very different needs for online discussions, or forums as they're usually called. I've known some courses that create 5+ threads per week, but honestly, that will be a bear to moderate. 1 or 2 would be better. On this screen are my personal top 5 commandments for managing good online discussions. Item 1, be visibly present. That means that students have to see that you're there, and you do that by posting. If you're just observing the action, they can't see you. The second point is that you're not just a participant. You need to guide them when they get off point, steer them back, and lead the comments toward the understanding that only you can provide. Making a habit of summarizing the post for a week or a topic is also a good idea. Naturally, the topic of the discussion prompt should be relevant to that week's content. And finally, although I'm sure you do this naturally, you should model the style of writing that you expect in a UVI course: polite, respectful, and spell-checked. Technically, all the discussions that take place in Blackboard are organized in the discussion board area. However, there are several ways you can link a given topic to a week or a topic or a learning module. There are zillions of ways you can organize discussions both at the time you create them and later. For this little introduction, I'll only point out 3 things about discussions that I think are important. First of all, there are 2 steps to starting a discussion. First, you have to create it, and then you start the initial discussion prompt, which is called a thread. This takes some getting used to. Among the many decisions you can make, I think the most important is whether you allow students to start new threads or not. If you have a small class, I'd recommend that you do allow them to do this. But if you have a large and very talkative class, it may be better not to allow it. I'll post some links in the discussion board help files in this week's content area. We've talked about group work a little bit before, but I will say again that almost all students abhor group work and almost as many professors love it. In an online class, multiply that by 10. For students, the major issue is that there is no class time and hence no obvious time to meet. In addition, since they cannot see each other, it's all too easy for someone not to pull his or her weight in the group project. For professors, an online group project needs to be a lot more organized and there's a lot more supervision than in a project in an on-ground class. But as we discussed last week, the payoff may be worth the hassle. Even though you have described what you mean by netiquette in your syllabus, things may still get out of hand. This would be a time when you direct the student to your personal email or UDI email or phone number. Another problem is a student who posts comments in a forum that are just a tad too personal. Once again, you intervene to that person only and not to the entire group. In some classes, especially in business classes, you may also have to remind students not to post content that should be kept confidential, such as company information. Your final way of communicating with students, though, is through the feedback you give them individually through the Blackboard feedback mechanism or via other means. We looked a bit at that last week, but let's close this week with a few pointers on practical feedback to student assignments and projects in your online class. So there you are with 29 essays in the Blackboard Grade Center. The mechanics of posting feedback are covered in the Blackboard help files, but I did want to end with a few points based on some years of experience. So first, even if something is pretty pitiful, you can almost always find a nice thing to start with. So be a cheerleader. One negative comment that can be modified with tone of voice and the look on your face in a meeting in your office can sound extremely harsh if it comes out of the blue in text only. Secondly, I strongly recommend writing your comments in a word processor first. For one thing, you can compare what you say about one student with another and make sure you're equally fair. But also you can double check your words to support as much as possible without the passing work that should not pass. You can even create cookie cutter responses a little better than "nice job, Joe," and then customize each one for a specific instance. I know quite a few instructors that do this. Of course, as always, make sure to save your work frequently. I personally lost about half a chapter of my doctoral dissertation a billion years ago because autosave didn't exist then. Never again. I look forward to participating in this week's discussions, to see your final assignments, and most importantly, to see your courses. See you soon.